So internally, AI really represents a force multiplier. Externally, for our customers, creates some really interesting opportunities. So one of the core values that we provide is being able to notify customers when an unexpected issue occurs. So when the temperature is too high, we can send you an alert. But what if, with AI, you could ask a simple question, why is the temperature so high? And leveraging AI tools, it can tell you. It can evaluate all the other sensors that it feeds into the system. It can evaluate all the other conditions. It can evaluate the history that led up to that condition happening. And it could give you an answer and say, well, the temperature is too high because the air conditioner turned off, but the air conditioner turned off because you lost power. So your root cause isn't high temperature, it's power loss in this particular circuit. Hi, this is Rick Grundy from AVTECH. You're watching the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast.
Hi, it's Joshua Feinberg from the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast, and I'm thrilled to welcome a very special guest here with me today. I'm welcoming Rick Grundy, who is the CEO and president of AVTECH Software, makers of Room Alert, based in Warren, Rhode Island. Rick, welcome to the podcast.
Very happy to be here, Joshua. Thanks so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. The first place I think would be super interesting to start is, can you be a little background on how you ended up in this place where you're leading a company that makes software that controls data centers, critical facilities, and digital infrastructure? Was this something that you always thought about when you were younger in your career? Were there some things that you did when you were in high school and college that set you along this path? What led you to this place?
Yeah, great question. I think the best way to sum it up is that my background growing up has always been about building things. Not always in technology, sometimes just more hands-on. My father and grandfather operated a hardware store and lumberyard growing up. So as a child, I was running up and down the aisles, thinking I was helping to stock shelves, but probably, learning more life experience than I expected at the time. So, being around that environment of both building a small business, but also people who are building things, that's really what the genesis of my interest and what we're doing now started. So, fast forwarding from there and getting into the technology space, always had an interest in STEM and engineering. And I found my way into a computer science background with also supplementary experience in mechanical engineering and electrical engineering. And believe it or not, started here at AVTECH as an intern almost 25 years ago. So really got started on the ground floor, and through that internship and then supplementary employment after that, really had an opportunity to be part of growing the company and growing our Room Alert products and the Room Alert brand over the last 25 years. So that's how I got started, and I'm really, really fortunate to be in the position to lead our team and bring our Room Alert products across the world now to 187 countries.
Wow. That's a lot of coverage, a lot of time zones, a lot of localization to deal with. So given that you started as an intern and you had this tremendous experience while you were a teen, which would be awesome for all teens to experience while they're in high school working with a small business, what advice do you give when you come across students that are in high school, college, maybe even younger, that have heard a little bit about data centers, digital infrastructure, critical facilities? 5-10 years ago, they for sure wouldn't have, but now that OpenAI has been having this moment the last couple of years, we see data centers in mainstream business and financial news all the time. So what advice do you give to neighbor's son or daughter, cousin, niece, nephew, son or daughter of a coworker who approaches you, who's curious about what some of the career opportunities might look like in the data center industry, especially if they're less technical, if they're looking at some of these more client-facing roles?
It's a great question. I usually start by asking them to really broaden their perspective. The data center industry is in many ways much like a public utility at this point, like water, sewer, gas, and electric. It is the engine that drives the entire world economy. And it's not just racks in a room. It's the infrastructure supporting those racks. It's the hardware installed in those racks. It's the software running on the racks. It's the delivery strategies and mechanisms bringing those technologies out to customers globally. It is the global economic impact of work like that, and how that work impacts different geographies, different regions, different tax impacts. It's the marketing of those services and why the services in your organization are superior or more beneficial for the customer than a competitor. So when you really broaden the perspective, that the data center industry in and of itself is really covers almost every other industry in the world. There's not a single industry that doesn't in some way depend on some data center infrastructure. So it really presents a nice entry point into using the common language of a data center to learn a lot about the rest of the global economy and find your interest in which parts of that economy you feel the most interest in. So some of our team members, for example, they may have gone to university or to college for creative writing. What they're finding their way into now is writing specs and technical documentation and voice of the customer stories that help feed our engineering. We've got others who maybe went for supply chain management, and they're naturally finding their way into operations and manufacturing and some of those parts of the business. And then we've got others that were just general graphic design, but now find their way into the marketing side of our business and are really helping to supplement that. So when you're a new or a younger person considering a future, a major in college, or now you're in college, you're considering a career, taking that step back and trying to broaden the perspective and looking at the data center industry really as, to me, it's the common entry point into the entire economy. And so if you can learn about that data center marketplace, it really allows you to move laterally into potentially any other opportunity that may come its way down the road.
Yeah, I often tell people to think about, we catalog 52 different business models plus the 5 different kinds of operators. It's almost like you need a hop on, hop off bus tour of someone taking you around to give you a little bit of exposure of dozens of different interrelated areas, because there's just so many different facets to this. Like, you're a software company, you're within the technology space, but for sure there's people that work in facilities related roles that are interested in your product as well. And it's used by operators, it's used by end users who are in those facilities because of construction and real estate and investment. So
absolutely. And there's a real advantage to considering the small or mid-sized organizations within that space, because your exposure to more breadth within that organization is going to be greater. It's less likely that you're going to be kind of shoehorned into one specialist area. Instead, you're likely to be exposed to really many other parts of that organization. It's going to set the stage for, I think, learning a lot more about where your interests are, and then you can go deeper into those areas. So it really creates a good learning opportunity for the person that comes into it with the right mindset, that broad view and an interest in really exploring and experimenting and getting involved in different areas.
Yeah, it's fantastic to take that approach, and being fortunate to have internships and be thinking about this while you're in college is definitely seems to be a big unlock with getting on the right path. What about someone that's more further along in their career, maybe mid-career, that you worked with 10 or 15 years ago? You bump into them at a conference, you used to be really close with them, and you sense they're a little bit burned out and they're trying to figure out what their next move should be. What advice would you offer to someone over breakfast or coffee on how to get their career back on track, doing something related to digital infrastructure or data centers?
Yeah, one of our core values here at AVTECH is about thrive on growth. And growth sometimes is thought of as needing to be this major initiative. You need to go back to school to a credentialed degree program. And really the way we interpret it is just learn something new every day. It could be watching a podcast like yours and picking up some new ideas from one of your guests. It could be reading a book. It could be, learning about something through AI or an article. That is really the starting point. You've got to reignite that real emotion around, the satisfaction that comes from growing and expanding your knowledge base. I think where some people tend to get stuck towards that is, well, where do you start? If you're at that point in your career where you feel like you're at a bit of a roadblock, it can be difficult to understand, maybe where you want to go. And I think that's really where the advantage comes in of the small to mid-sized market space really creates a lot more opportunity for some career exploration, to reset, to get out of maybe some of the larger corporate bottlenecks that may exist, some of the silos that may exist, and start to get your hands into parts of the business that you may have been separated from before. We certainly see that here. We've got a large number of our employees are in that mid-career range where they may have started with us and gotten to this point, but many have had careers and explored other organizations for quite some time and found a real growth opportunity with us, not only because of the market that we're in and the growth that we're experiencing with our customers, but mostly with their career and the learning and the opportunity to be more creative and be a bit more dynamic in their day-to-day work, which starts to plant the seed for how they can be more dynamic in their thinking towards personal growth and career growth. So not being afraid of a reset, I think, is where I would really position that. The market itself is booming. In spite of what some of the larger organizations are doing, where you're seeing on the news where they may have grown quickly or they've got the luxury of funding where they can add headcount whether they need it or not, and you're seeing cutbacks in other parts of this industry, in the data center industry, in the technology space. You're seeing much more dynamic growth and opportunity, and it's just a matter of finding the organization that matches your drive and desire, and there's plenty of opportunity to reignite that spark. Learn some new things and figure out maybe some different directions within the data center space that you didn't explore previously and now have interest.
What's really fascinating, as well as you mentioned a couple of times, the value of working in a smaller company, of being able to take on a lot of different roles. If you think about the variety of a daily routine for someone in a five-person IT company, five-person IT department versus a 500-person IT department, how much more fun it can be. Challenging as well because you're dealing with less resources, but in terms of really being able to own a problem from start to finish, understand what's going on, being a lot closer to the end users, a lot more involved in strategic planning, it's like night and day.
That's exactly right. And even when you scale that up, the difference between 200 people versus 2,000 people, the difference between 2,000 people and 200,000 people, there's different organizations at each of those stages, and each offer different benefits and different opportunities. And so we're big proponents of, we, even though we've been around for 37 years, we've now got products in 187 countries. We've got operations here in Rhode Island, distribution in Ireland, and we operate our own manufacturing facility in Pennsylvania. So we've gotten scale over these last 3 decades, but we still operate like we're the scrappy underdog. And it allows a lot of our team to really get involved in some of the strategic planning, in the execution planning, in project management. We try to really shake up teams from time to time to allow different members of our team to get involved with different projects on a regular basis. And it keeps that spark alive. It keeps the interest alive and the involvement in different parts of the company. And I think that just creates a lot more innovation. It really keeps the collective brain engaged. One of the things we talk about here is that we don't know what our true potential is as an organization because we haven't fully explored what the true potential is of each of our individual team members. And so we're focused on that. If we can really get at the root of what the true potential is of everybody on our team, then we'll realize what the potential is of the organization. And I think that's the kind of spirit that you can get if you find yourself into the right organization within this technology space.
Plus, on top of it, with a closely held small business, you can make your primary buyer persona your clients and your partners, as opposed to having to worry about shareholder results and wild swings in publicly traded markets or venture-backed or private equity and different kinds of horizons on value.
Exactly right. Yep.
The Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, make sure that you subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website that can be found at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that URL is www.dcsmi.com.
So I'm curious, when you look out at the bigger picture industry on a global level, on a national level. What do you see as the biggest challenge that companies are facing in your part of the ecosystem when it comes to AVTECH software, when it comes to Room Alert?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's multifaceted, and given the climate today globally with global economics, it seems to be changing daily. So in some cases, it's around the products themselves and the logistics of moving product in and out of different countries around the world, because we operate in several countries. Like I mentioned previously, we've got distribution in Ireland, we've got a sales office in Dubai, and so operating within those countries represents some challenges. But then distributing products across 187 countries in dealing with tariffs, dealing with import and export duties, dealing with transport and logistics costs. The global economy represents some challenges. And I think the unknowns that are there currently represent some challenges for organizations to determine where do they invest and where is the most opportunity and where's the most risk. So logistics is certainly part of it. I think technology, as it always does, is moving faster than ever. And so one of the areas of rapid change that organizations need to really determine how they can integrate with their business is AI. How is AI going to impact how they operate their business? How is AI going to impact how they can service their customers and how their products can provide benefits to their customers? And often when you see AI, it's talked about like it's this magic nebulous that just exists, and you just need to layer AI into your business and magical things happen. It's not that way. You still need really intelligent integration of that AI to be able to add the right kind of value to customers. So I think there's a lot of, it's really interesting times now because there's a lot of interesting applications for how you can apply AI to that. So as an example for our business, our Room Alert products provide environment monitoring to protect people, property, and productivity against unexpected damage and downtime caused by environment issues. So that could be high temperature, it could be power failures, it could be flooding where you don't expect it, it could be smoke and fire. Any of those environment conditions typically cause up to 30% of damage and downtime for an organization within a data center and within the wider facility. So when we look at our technology and our Room Alert products and how AI can benefit those, we see a couple areas. One is internal productivity. As an organization always looking to be able to do more, AI for us is really a force multiplier. We can take our existing team, our really talented team and capable team that knows exactly what we're looking to do and just needs some acceleration. AI can help provide some of that acceleration, both on the software development side, but also on marketing automation and on go-to-market strategy and other tools related to that. So internally, AI really represents a force multiplier. Externally, for our customers, create some really interesting opportunities. So one of the core values that we provide is being able to notify customers when an unexpected issue occurs. So when the temperature is too high, we can send you an alert. But what if with AI, you could ask a simple question, why is the temperature so high? And leveraging AI tools, it can tell you. It can evaluate all the other sensors that it feeds into the system. It can evaluate all the other conditions. It can evaluate the history that led up to that condition happening. And it could give you an answer and say, well, the temperature is too high because the air conditioner turned off, but the air conditioner turned off because you lost power. So your root cause isn't high temperature. It's power loss in this particular circuit. AI can do that. And so really interesting customer-facing applications can be developed there. So I think organizations are really wrestling with that, both the internal side of how you integrate it with your team and your technologies, and also externally, how can you leverage new technology like AI to benefit your customers. But for people in the data center space, for people in the technology space, it really represents an exciting time because leveraged properly, it is, like I mentioned, a force enabler, a multiplier. It can really add significant value when deployed appropriately and towards the right strategies.
Do you feel we're at the stage where most of your mid-size and enterprise clients have a pretty good handle on their AI roadmap, or do you find that your sales team, your support team, your account managers spend a lot of time consulting with potential clients and your existing clients on how to better integrate Room Alert into their tech stack?
It still feels early days, honestly. It feels, you know, the language that we hear customers using is mostly around they're aware of what it is. They understand that they would like to be integrating that in some way, but the specific details of how to do it are still a bit vague. So we're excited to be part of that conversation. We're certainly excited about what we feel we have, which is a leadership position in the environment space where we can be very specific about how tools like that can benefit our customers, and then can be really consultative with our customers in terms of how we can assist them bringing it into their organization. So, you know, it still feels early and emerging, but that's a good thing. You know, I really think that there's an opportunity both for customers to realize significant future value with a successful implementation, for organizations like ourselves to realize significant value in terms of being able to effectively bring that to customers. I think if we bring the conversation full circle to what you mentioned earlier about people either just getting started or people at a position in their career where they're looking for a pivot, really represents an exciting time to take experience that may have been developed over the course of a career and reimagine how that experience can be deployed, leveraging some acceleration tools like AI and others. So really, really interesting time in the technology space.
So with being in 187 different countries and having locations in only 2 of those time zones, and thinking about who would most likely be your internal employees in those locations, how have you thought historically about staffing up your go-to-market functions, marketing, sales, and support to cover so many different regions, so many different geographies, so many different cultural issues?
It really represents a challenge. I think on one hand, one of the advantages that we've had is that historically the language of IT is English. So although we work across the world and across cultures and across languages, typically when you're working in an IT space, English is a common thread that can be woven between each of those cultures. But that common thread doesn't overcome the logistical challenges and the time zone challenges of being able to deliver service in the region where the customer exists. One of our brand promises to our customers is that when you need help, we're here. Well, there still needs to be that physical delivery. So that's actually part of our core strategy as you look at the next 1 to 2 years ahead, of being really thoughtful about where we can deploy resources and invest further in resources to cover the majority of the globe. If you look at our sales office in Dubai, that was a real strategic location for 2 reasons. One, it's a growing part of the world. It's economically strong. They're investing in new facilities and new buildings and new IT infrastructure, and all of those things need Room Alert. And so we're seeing that. Those UAE and Saudi Arabia are 2 of our top 5 countries globally right now in terms of deploying Room Alert products. But it's also 9 hours ahead of our Eastern time zone that we typically operate in. So now through those 9 hours, we can cover a whole nother part of the world that we were unable to previously. So we're looking to repeat that effort in different parts of the world. When you look at Southeast Asia, you look at Australia, New Zealand, even looking at Europe and the growth opportunity that exists there, leveraging our Irish distribution facility to expand that into being a sales and support office. Those are all potential options for us as we evaluate the needs of our customers. But a core need, to your point, is certainly having access to resources in the time zones that our customers operate at, and that's a core focus for us.
And with that in mind, how do you decide what to build out internally versus look to channel partners for?
So it's a great point. Most of our sales distribution internationally, we do leverage channel partners. It's an important part of our business market. And even in markets where we have a direct presence, so I'll go back to Dubai as an example. We have direct AVTECH employees in Dubai selling and supporting Room Alert products. And our customers appreciate that. But the majority of those customers still prefer buying through a channel partner. They'd like to have an IT resource or an MSP or an installer or somebody close by who can assist with the installation and deployment of that product, and also assist with the ongoing support of the product. And we fully recognize that and support that effort. So that's one of the reasons that over the last 37 years, we have been able to ship our products into 187 countries, is that in each of those countries, or at least at the very least in each of those regions, we've got really strong channel partners that can operate locally for us. What we found in Dubai, which I think, it kind of goes back to AI being a force multiplier. For us, it's kind of a channel multiplier. If we can take these really strong channel partners that are servicing and supporting our customers in those markets, and then layer on top of that direct sales and support from the AVTECH team, the people who know the product best and can support the product best, and be in support of our channel partners in those regions, that's where we really see strong growth and success, just like we're seeing in Dubai and Saudi Arabia, and we're looking to repeat that in different parts of the world. So certainly channel partners are a massive part of that deployment strategy, but one that can be made even stronger by having some local presence. And I think it shows our customers that we do operate globally, and we are investing in their region and in their country, and we believe in the opportunity that exists there, and they repay that with belief in Room Alert.
And for sure, both UAE and Saudi Arabia are very committed to smart cities and automation and being world-class leaders in those areas. So I'm sure that's helping your channel partners, and that's trickling down to an incredible desire to automate as much as possible.
That's right. I mean, there's two sides of the equation. One is that certainly with new buildings and new technology and new capabilities, there's a drive for technologies like Room Alert. Historically, though, a lot of the world has older buildings that may not be LEED certified, may not be the most efficient buildings, may not be the smartest buildings. They may have old mercury thermostats, and you just don't know. Maybe the heat and the air conditioning is running at the same time. And so a large part of our business is taking products like Room Alert and installing them in older buildings and making those older buildings smart, and adding technology to an older building that allows those customers who are not going to move away from that old building. It may be historic. There's reasons why you just can't completely replace that with a glass tower with all the modern technology, but you can retrofit in Room Alert and get many of the same benefits and visibility. And then the third opportunity really is where a lot of our customers come in, where if you look at most of the large commercial space globally, you've got a building owner who may operate 100,000 square feet or several 100,000 square feet in a tower. But within that, you may have 100 different tenants in different spaces within those buildings. And those tenants have no visibility of the building management system. They have no awareness of the performance of the chillers. They have no awareness of the status of the power, or whether the air conditioning is performing, or whether secured spaces are being opened and closed. And Room Alert can provide that. So a lot of our customers are taking Room Alert, installing it into their tenant space within a larger building, and it provides some of the same building management intelligence so that they can make decisions about their leased space separate from the building owner, who may have the controlled central visibility of the building as a whole. So it's really a nice supplemental way to know when the landlord turns off power on a weekend to service a chiller, or turns off an air conditioner, and now your room in your leased space is overheating. You may not have known until you came in on Monday morning and your systems were offline. So a lot of our business is also that third category of just taking a space within a space and making sure that you've got intelligence about how that space is performing and whether or not your digital infrastructure is up and running as a result.
I imagine, too, it probably makes a big difference whether the landlord were to buy a license of that for all 100 of its tenants and the landlord's paying the bill versus the individual tenant having control and trying to keep the landlord honest.
That's exactly right. And it's also that, but also many of those tenants themselves are multi-tenant. So that may be their office in New York, but they've also got an office in San Francisco and an office in Austin and an office in London and an office in Singapore. And so they want centralized monitoring and reporting of all of those spaces. We have some multinational companies that do that same thing, where they can now, under one umbrella, see all their facilities, see the different temperatures, see the different power status, see how their air conditioning is performing, and consolidate that information into one pane of glass so they can see globally how their environments are performing and where's the highest temperature globally right now, or where's the highest power draw on our HVAC, and may be able to make better global facilities decisions as a result of it.
Rick, the final area I want to ask you about today is how do you think your routine may change as CEO, as leader of a software company in and around the data center ecosystem over the next 2 to 4 years?
So one of the ways it's changing directly for us is we're actually pushing more innovation and accountability down into the organization. I think it brings our conversation full circle with where we started, about how I started and what the advice would be of bringing people into the organization. What we're finding is that the more capability we push further down into the organization, the more good things happen. The more opportunity and the more we focus on trying to determine what somebody's individual potential is, the greater our potential as an organization comes. So, really where my focus has been over the last couple of years, and I expect to fully continue to being on that, is really focusing on that core value of thriving on growth, of developing a culture of learning, a culture of expansion, a culture of, new ability. And rather than feeling like it's up to me to then drive the implementation of that, trust that by creating a great team, they're the ones driving the implementation. And I just need to tell us where we're going. So it's a really exciting time for us as an organization. I think it reflects what's really an exciting time for the industry with new technology and emerging technologies and changing capabilities. And the entire economy depends on digital infrastructure. So we are really at a central place of the global economy with an opportunity to influence in ways that we can't even imagine at this point. And so by creating that focus on growth and opportunity and skills expansion, we can ensure that our team's going to be ready to respond with whatever the new opportunity is 12 months from now or 6 years from now. And that's really what my focus has been as an organizational leader.
That's fascinating. Rick, if somebody wants to learn more about you or connect with you or learn about Room Alert, is LinkedIn the best place to send them?
LinkedIn is great. You can also visit our website. We've got full contact information there on avtech.com, so AVTECH.com. Certainly look me up on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to respond and connect with anybody through there as well.
That's terrific. And we'll make sure and include links to those in the blog and the show notes as well. I've been speaking with Rick Grundy, who's the president and CEO of AVTECH, makers of Room Alert, based in Warren, Rhode Island. Thanks so much for joining me today, Rick.
Thanks, Joshua. Very much appreciated.
The Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, make sure that you subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website that can be found at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that URL is www.dcsmi.com.